In another video on her channel, Old Fan calls out fellow YouTuber Superhuman Dance for his anti-Semitic remarks. We believe this demonstrates that Old Fan has a double standard when it comes to inmendom. She calls out Superhuman Dance for being anti-Semitic and feeding into the tropes of white supremacy, but hasn't called out inmendom for the same things. Let's listen.
So recently a lot of this drama started because he did make some comments in a video that were a little suspect. And a lot of people, including myself, did kind of call it out as anti-Semitism. It's some of the language you're using. I mean, the whole thing about this schemer, you're talking about people, not making some sort of salient critique of the religion or Israel, none of which I would have a problem with. It's this sort of genetic argument about the high intelligence, and their schemers and the mismanagement, the dysfunction, and it's exactly the type of, sort of coded white supremacist language that they use. And if you don't know that, okay, maybe you're not a bigot, but I mean, you're kind of an idiot for putting that on the internet and not having any understanding why people would be like, what did he mean by that? That sounds like language that I'm used to hearing from certain types of people.
The double standard here is obvious. But the deeper question is whether or not the antinatalist community thinks it's good to publicly associate with Efilists, with Efilism, or with inmendom. It is an unfortunate fact of antinatalist history that inmendom and Old Fan rose to positions of prominence and influence within antinatalism, and this occurred despite inmendom's Holocaust skepticism being widely known, as well as his homophobia, misogyny and violent rhetoric. Holocaust denial isn't the only objectionable view of inmendom, naturally. In the following clips, we will hear a brief sampling of inmendom's views regarding pregnant women and women in general. Let's listen in.
I never accepted the risk. I made sure every woman I ever stuck my dick into, I said, I don't care whether the condom breaks, I don't care whether magic fairies stick sperm in your uterus. If you get pregnant, you're either going down a staircase or you're getting a fucking abortion, but you ain't having no fucking kid.
Well, that's a risk to think that you could actually pull that off because you don't have the right.
No problem pulling it off because every one of the women I slept with were exactly of the same frame of mind where they had absolutely no intention to have any goddamn babies.
Yeah, but it's not zero risk that one of them would change
their mind.
It's
zero risk, and that both minds have had consent that I will kill you, basically.
Definitely not zero risk.
Well, you still took a risk. That's
if you violate this contract, we have a contract. We're having sex. If you violate the contract, I will kill you.
Well, that's disgusting that you'd even say that.
Right,
well, I would kill a bitch if she tried to have my baby.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, really?
Of course I would. You still don't get it, jackass, do you? You really don't get it, that people are born into this world and they are tortured, you fucking crazy bastard. They are tortured.
But you just had to have sex. I mean, you could have just not had sex.
I'm
but
just saying, a contract is a fucking contract, okay? If you tell somebody you're not going to have a child, you have no fucking right.
You're going to mitigate your risk with... You're going to mitigate with your risk with murder is still...
No, it's not murder. It's a contract, shithead.
You took the risk. No, most contracts don't have
contract. Do you know the word contract?
It's illegal to have a contract.
Such weaselly lying scum that you can't even make contracts. You're such liars and compulsive liars that you don't even have the integrity to defend a contract.
You don't get to kill somebody.
Yes, you do. We kill people all the time for violating the social contract.
Oh my God.
But just little thoughts of the prego walking down the street, just somebody whaps him with a 2x4 or something, Yeah, that entertains me. Yeah, they should be hit with 2x4.
I don't want to be picking on women, but there is something fundamentally horribly irritating about them. I can't say I have any hard facts or anything about exactly what it is, but they do seem to be possessed by some sort of agent that just makes them totally irritating as fuck.
I have said that, if a woman makes a decision to have a kid with another human being, in the sense that she decides to poke holes in condoms, to cheat, to lie. And you make an agreement and a contract that, look, I'm not interested in having kids. I don't want the financial responsibility, and I just don't want the blight on my own existence. I don't want to be responsible for the creation of a human being. So you make an agreement that, if everything fails, we're going to do the rational thing here, okay? We're going to use condoms and whatever birth control we can use. But if we fuck up, you know that you're supposed to have an abortion, right? That's what you got to do, because we're not going to do this thing of making babies. And then she violates that agreement. So I'm just saying the logic isn't flawed in the sense that, it just depends on whether you think the gravity of this agreement means anything. That's right. If I think if a woman makes these agreements, she's worthy of a shove down a staircase. From my perspective, that's there's nothing irrational in my behavior. There's no reasoning flaw based on the premises I believe in. Now, if you don't believe it's a criminal act, you don't believe it's dangerous and reckless and silly for women to have babies for silly and stupid and trivial reasons, you don't believe that this is implicating a whole bunch of potential harm, okay, that is weighty and real, then obviously you're not going to have the same impression. You're going to think this is just a trivial hairstyle thing or something. So that's my defense. I don't take back the statements. I don't take back my personal opinion, because that's my personal opinion. That's what a woman deserves. Okay, that's the lesson they should be taught, is that this is not acceptable behavior. The guilty should be punished to show them all that this isn't behavior you should play around with. I would argue that in theory the only way you stop it from happening is you do have to discourage things. But anyway, it just has to do, this is more about just a statement about prevention, and the fact is that's the most direct way to prevent.
In an Efilist roundtable discussion led by Mark Maharaj, prominent Efilist and member of Antinatalist International Laith Malik Reem gives his views on the same subject. Let's listen.
So when it comes in your conversation with the college students, you mentioned, and I don't know if any of you've mentioned this before, that people who procreate, it's akin to murder. Is that right?
Well, of course, G. Woon was famous for calling his book that.
Yeah. So what I'd be concerned about is, if it's akin to murder and someone is determined to do that action, is it ethical to stop that person? Laith, what do you? So like,
I would literally do whatever I can to stop that person from procreating.
Well, let me be very specific about it. Like, would you euthanize a pregnant woman? Would that be ethical to stop her from procreating?
If there's no other way to let her abort that child, then yeah, why not? Because by euthanizing that woman, you're saving that child from coming into existence, from suffering, from that. Even if the chance is only 1% of that child of becoming an antinatalist or becoming somebody who hates life, somebody who's suicidal. So why gamble on others? Why play the card of somebody else? So that's why, of course, I would because to me there's no difference between somebody who's planning to have a child and a terrorist. There's no difference between an ISIS fighter and a parent, especially nowadays, especially after the pandemic, especially after, like, we're only talking about the circumstances now, but the problem is existential. It's not circumstantial, but even with all these circumstances, people still do not give a shit. They still procreate without even thinking about it twice. And the problem is that it's legalized in all the world. All the governments give them the green light to do so. So it's the biggest crime ever that one could ever done, and it's legalized. So yeah, I would do what I can do in order to stop these people from procreating. I want to add one more thing, because Glynis asked me the question, like, why haven't I killed pregnant women that I met before? I think it's the same exact reason why you wouldn't kill a terrorist or an ISIS fighter if you see him in the street. You would call the police, for example, and let them know about him, but you wouldn't kill him yourself. Yeah, because
Okay.
it's killing in the end, as you said.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Now let's listen to old fans' views on the subject from the same roundtable discussion.
I am not in any way for the euthanasia or murder of pregnant women. I think that's going a step far too far. And I think that if that's in any way in a man's conception of a reasonable response, come on, guys, you gotta stick your dick in something else. I mean, if that's at all a roll of the dice you're willing to play, and if that's at all on the table, for a possible outcome. First of all, if that's the world we're going to live in, I mean, there has to be better contracts between men and women before sex. If you were to say living in a world where there are those kinds of contracts, and you both agreed that should a pregnancy occur, and it does happen, that you would both agree to like get an abortion, and she went back on that. I do understand being unbelievably, perhaps murderously angry. I don't think that gives you a license to act on that murderous rage. You're just as responsible. You're just as culpable for the chance being taken. So, I mean, if she has to die, so do you, quite frankly, and I'm not for that either, but I'm just saying I don't really understand why she would be the only one punished in that circumstance. Doesn't make any sense to me at all. Yeah, I mean, there's, just don't have sex if that's going to be a punishment that you feel at all at liberty to dish out. What are we taking this chance over? I mean, just to be able to ejaculate in the vagina, we're going to chance having to murder people and force abortions. I mean, figure out some other way to get jollies off.
The two then get into an argument about the matter. In all fairness, Laith did clarify that he would kill both the pregnant woman and any man who impregnated her. This is a little less misogynistic than in Mendham's plan. Nonetheless, it is evident that Ephilists are cozy with those who justify murder. As we stated, Laith is a member of Antinatalist International and featured prominently on their website. Here is a photograph of Laith's Ephilist tattoo. When asked if he thinks humans should be executed for slaughtering animals, Laith replied, "An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Hunters should be hunted and butchers should be executed. No remorse." He also compared drinking milk to rape. This is a level of extremism not found in the wider antinatalist community. As you heard, logic like this can be used to justify real-world violence. Even if Ephilists say it is merely theoretical, the implications are practical. And those who associate and collaborate with Ephilists are guilty of normalizing this logic. This isn't a small disagreement. This is the difference between committing violence and not committing it, the difference between crime and mere abstinence from procreation. The question is, how long will the antinatalist community tolerate and support this association?